What's good now? It's the White Shadow Norway back at ya with another vinyl collector video, or better yet, another chart, another top 20 list. Today I'm gonna count down my top 20 favorite hip hop singles, 12-inch singles that is, of the 1980s. So it's about to get red, hot, and tough up in here. We're going to get into it right away, but I'm going to say that this was an incredibly hard task. I can understand now why there's so few lists out there on hip-hop singles, but so many on albums. So this was difficult, man. I can't front. But in the end, I managed to pick my top 20 80s hip-hop 12-inch single favorites. So here we go. At number 20. It's my man, the 45 King. Now, to me, the 45 King, he was my favorite producer in hip-hop back in the late 80s, man. The way he just laced those break beats and samples and just fattened everything up. It was on some next shit to me back then. Definitely the best producer. For a moment there, the 45 King, and mostly I probably known for producing for Eminem and JC as well. This one was an EP he put out called The King Is Here. The main track was a track called The King Is Here. But the one that blew up, and you can't see the title of it unfortunately because of the DJ type sticker I got there. But the one that blew up was a track called The 900 Number, which was a breakbeat instrumental hip hop type record where he just looped some good old, I think it was Maury Whitney or some James Brown shit anyway. My memory isn't the greatest as I'm getting older. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, the 900 Number. Back then, back in the days then, if you went to a hip-hop jam or a club where they played hip-hop, that was like the theme, man. They would play that like in between songs and everything, before and after acts got on stage and everything, man, all the time. So number 20, my man, the 45 King, and the classic breakbeat instrumental hip-hop track, the 900 Number. Keeps it moving on to number 19. Great yellow and black Atlantic 12-inch maxi single cover right here. The producer, Arthur Baker, he did a lot of production for Africa Bambaataa and Freeze and a lot of other electro funk and electro hip hop type joints back then. Renowned for being the best producer in hip hop around the mid 80s or so. This is a solo single from him called Breaker's Revenge, which was on the soundtrack to the Beat Street movie. Now, as fake as the Beat Street movie is, I mean, I've heard stories that the old school cats, when they saw Beat Street, they cried because they thought it was so whack. But to us, you know, just some kids out in Europe, it was iconic, and it changed a lot of lives, and it just blew up b-boying or breakdancing out here. Like after Beat Street, man, everybody was gonna get into hip hop and just, you know, break dance in the streets and hip hop jams and parties and all that stuff. So to us who were already into hip hop before Beat Street came along, that was great because finally we could play a lot of hip hop in the clubs and everything. And I must admit, I love the movie, man. I know it's fake and all that, but I still love Beat Street, man. Anyway, number 19, Arthur Baker, Breaker's Revenge, the 12-inch single. The B-side got some dope remixes, and the A-side here got the extended version. So a great value for money 12-inch, this one, and one of my hip-hop favorite 12-inch singles from the 80s. Bring it on to number 18. We're gonna go forward in time a little bit with Public Enemy. A later 12-inch from them called Welcome to the Terrordome, which was a really great one and a really hardcore one. This was like rebel music to us back in the days, man. I was like a regular club DJ, and you know, the homies would just come in to visit me, and we'd just put this on, and a lot of the times we would clear the dance floor with this, but we were just bugging out, man. We just, you know, rebel youth back then, man, having fun to the sound of this one. So definitely a soundtrack to my youth, this one. Public Enemy, Welcome to the Terror Dome at number 18 on the White Shadow Norway's favorite hip-hop 12-inch singles of the 80s. And next up at number 17, this is some underground shit from back in the 80s, man. By DJ Cheese and Word of Mouth featuring DJ Cheese is produced by Duke Booty. And the track King Cut on Duke Booty's label Beauty and the Beat Records. And check out these fly pictures here, man, just straight from DJ Cheese's bedroom where he's practicing his scratching and everything, and his MC, C, and K just hanging out there. Word of mouth, DJ Cheese. Now, Cheese, he was a world champion DMC DJ back in 1986. He won the DMC World Finals in 1986, and he also toured a lot in Norway the same year. A dude who was also my manager, my agent back in the days, named Eric Walkoff, rest in peace, Eric. Him and Dennis Donaldson, which is a one of the first DJs to win the Norwegian DMC battles back in 1986 as well. They, along with DMC, they booked Word of Mouth and DJ Cheese to do a lot of shows in Norway. So they came out here and just ripped it up, and that was a huge inspiration to Norwegian DJs, just hearing DJing at that level, because nobody had heard anything close to that. If you go to my Vimeo channel, you can find one of the shows with Word of Mouth and DJ Cheese that was filmed back here in 1986 there. I don't have the link right now, but just search for DJ Cheese Live 1986 in Norway or something like that on Vimeo, and you'll find it. Anyway, that was number 17, King Cut, Word of Mouth, and that was definitely, this was the hardest and heaviest and most badass and the very best 12-inch single that came out that year. 1980s 12-inch singles, best of 12-inch singles of the White Shadow Norway. And yes, the rhythm, the rebel, without a pause, I'm lowering my level. It's Public Enemy once again at number 16 with the epic, iconic Rebel Without a Pause. Great 12-inch that hadn't been out on an album yet. The rest of the tracks on this, Mausi By the Time You're Gonna Get Yours, was on Public Enemy's debut album, Yo Bam Russia Show. But Rebel was on some other shit, man, sampling the grunt by the JBs, a real noisy loop going on top of the funky drummer beat by James Brown. Changed hip-hop forever and ever, man. Badass rebel music from the 80s right here. Public Enemy, Rebel Without a Pause. Definitely on my top 20 favorite 12-inch hip-hop singles list of the 80s at number 16. Moving on to number 15, Run DMC. The A-side here got My Adidas. That was dope. But the B-side stole all the attention here, Peter Piper. Because of, them sampling Mardi Gras by Bob James and the way it was cut up and, with vocals in between and everything. This became a scratch DJ favorite for years, and it still is. It's definitely one of my favorite records to beat, juggle, and backspin and all that stuff there, man. Peter Piper, I still got my doubles in here on Profile Records by Run DMC at number 15. Take it back further a little bit with Grand Mixer DST. He first got known for doing the scratches on Herbie Hancock's Rocket, but he put out a bunch of great 12s himself as well, and with his crew, the Infinity MCs. And warning, this record is scratched. This one of his later joints and one of his best on Celluloid Records. Now, Celluloid Records was a great early to mid 80s underground hip hop label, and this is one of the releases on that label from DST called "The Bronx is the Home of Hip Hop," isn't it though? Yeah, just a great 12-inch from the mid-80s, this one by DST. Just love it. Love it, man. Loved it back then, still love it now. Such a solid 12-inch. As is this one, Funk You, on Tommy Boy Records. You know what's special back in the days is that they might, in the studio, they might spend months just mixing one song and making different mixes of one song. So, you know, in the end, when they picked the greatest mixes, they had maybe like 20 different mixes, and they would put the best parts from the various mixes together and everything into some fucking banging 12 inches and great 12-inch mixes, man. And they worked as hard on single songs as people later did on full albums. So no doubt that can be heard nowadays, and that goes into the longevity of these early to mid 80s hip hop joints. To me, I found out when I did these lists, because I did them from the 80s and the 90s and the 2Ks as well. I found out that nothing can really fuck with the early to mid 80s in hip hop records, in my opinion. It was the best, man. Many tried to get up there, but few could. Now, I'm yapping on. I'm going to get back into business here, because this is the White Shadow Norway's top 20 hip-hop 12-inch singles of the 1980s. Track called Funk You by Africa Bambaataa and Family. Now, I was inspired by the Africa Bambaataa and Family name when I did the White Shadow and Family album, as I was inspired by Africa Bambaataa on a lot of things, like the album title of my first one, Renegades, and everything. Bam is probably the most controversial character in hip-hop nowadays. As most of y'all probably know, he's the founding father of hip-hop as a culture, who organized all the elements, you know, b-boying, graffiti, rhyming, and DJing, and everything else hip-hop related, beatboxing, knowledge, what have you. All the elements, he put them together into one culture, and started a Zulu Nation that spread from the Bronx worldwide. It's a worldwide cultural movement now, and I was a member of Zulu Nation for a long time. Y'all probably know the controversy surrounding Bambaataa, so I'm not going to get into it that much. After all, this wasn't supposed to be like a serious video, and I don't want to discuss it either, because I'm one of the people who believe that Bambaataa is not guilty of what he's accused for. I mean, for me to believe that, it would take someone like Soul Sonic Force or Red Alert or Jazzy J to come out and straight say it, that yes, those rumors about Bam are true. Until then, I'm sorry, but I believe Bam more than people I've never heard about that comes out and accuses him for stuff. But enough about that. Top 20 80s hip-hop singles. One of the greats, this one, Africa Bambaataa and Family, Funk You at number 13. Number 12. We're going to keep it with Africa Bambaataa for a while, along with the crew Jazzy 5 this time. Early Tommy Boy Records, 12-inch Tommy Boy Records logo before they got their more well-known logo later with the B-Boys and everything. Africa Bambaataa and the Jazzy 5 and the classic Jazzy Sensation, the Bronx version. This is like a remix 12-inch of that one. As it says over here, the remix, and the B-side got the great funky versions of this by Tina B and the Cryptic Crew. This was, of course, a rework of Funky Sensation by Gwen McCrae, and a great rap version of that one, this one by Africa Bambaataa and the Jazzy 5. At number 12, it's a Jazzy Sensation. Almost in the top 10 now. We're at number 11. With MC Globe, GLOBE, from the Soul Sonic Force, and DJ WizKid. Now, WizKid was, in my opinion, the best scratch DJ, the best hip-hop DJ in the early days of hip-hop. He was doing stuff like transforming before it was even called transforming, and he was rocking 2 copies of records, just cutting them back and forth like faster and more complex than any other DJ I've heard from that era. You should look up mixtapes by him on YouTube and stuff, because they're out there. The great WizKid, rest in peace, and MC Globe. On Tommy Boy Records again, and by this time, They gotten their famous logo with the B-Boys and everything. Tommy Boy out of New York City, of course. Tommy Boy Records, Globe, and Wizkid Play That Beat, Mr. DJ. A lot of nice cutting and stuff like that for the time. This was 1983, so you're not going to find any crab scratches or even transforming on this. But, nonetheless, a really great 12-inch there. Focused on the DJs, and it's called Play That Beat, Mr. DJ, with GLOBE. Brags and boasts about Wizkid, among other things. Just another great classic on my top 20 80s favorite hip-hop 12-inch singles at number 11. Top 10, and we're in a time zone, because we're going back, yep, to the 80s. Zulu Wild Style, it says here. This is by Time Zone, and it's, of course, the famous The Wild Style, with some remixes and stuff by Francois Kevorkian, FK, Francois K, legendary remixer and producer from New York. Well, actually, he's French, but he lived in New York, and he produced a lot of the greatest dance and hip-hop classics back then, man. He's definitely my favorite producer and remixer of like the late 70s, early 80s, FK. But anyway, Time Zone was also a Zulu Nation type thing, featuring Africa Bambaataa and B-Side and Bernard Fowler and all them dudes, man. And Wild Style is a classic 12-inch on that label. This used to be my very favorite hip-hop song back then. There are others that have passed it now, as you of course know, as this is only number 10 on my top 12-inch singles from the 80s. But man, what a record. They truly don't make them like that no more, man. Not even close. We are in the top 10, my friends, at number 9 on the label Cutting Records out of New York from 1983 by Hashim, with the dope title Al Nafish, whatever that means, The Soul. Al Nafish, The Soul by Hashim. Excuse me. Of course, this is most famous among turntablists and scratch DJs. This has been used in a million DJ battles where we cut the It's Time and Just Feel It, you know. Just a great record for scratching and turntablism. And of course, there's doubles in here, man. And just a great track to play as well. Just an incredible electro track that we played a lot back then. That would pack the dance floors, like the more commercial dance floors as well. There was just something about this track that made people who were normally not into this kind of music, like hip-hop and electro and stuff, it still made them get on the dance floors and you know, shake that ass up. So that's my number 9, Hashim, Al Nafish. Moving on to number 8. This probably is kind of low to some, as a lot of people I know would have this at number 1 on their lists. We're still on Tommy Boy Records in New York. Sorry. And we're talking about Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force here, with music by Planet Patrol. We bringing it back. I think there was, it doesn't say the year on it, but I'm pretty sure it was 1982, man. You know me in years and numbers and shit. I'm not the best at it, but I'm trying, goddammit. Anyway, the classic Planet Rock at number 8 on my top 20 80s favorite hip-hop 12-inch singles. The backstory of Planet Rock, of course, this was a rework of Kraftwerk's Trans-Europe Express, as well as Numbers 2, I believe. And also they were inspired by funk artist Captain Sky's Super Sperm. So they try to combine all those, but they reworked it. Like back in 82, there were no samplers yet. People were not sampling and looping and taking straight off records yet. So everything back then was reworked instead of sampled. Some people, yeah, a lot of people probably have accused hip-hop of stealing music. But let me tell you something, man. Hip-hop's always been about taking the best parts of records and mixing them with other records. It started with DJs and DJ mix and cut-up culture, you know. So it's gonna be stolen. That's part of hip-hop. It should be. It's not stolen, it's just you take something and you rework it and you make your own versions. Now, ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing but good shit about that. But anyway, Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force, Planet Rock, the classic, at number 8 on my hip-hop favorite 12-inch singles of the 80s. Yeah, talking about sampling and stuff, by the way, Kraftwerk were not too happy about this record when they met Bambaataa. So they had some kind of course, not beef, but they had some kind of discussion about it or something, but it got worked out. I don't remember the whole story, but it's a great classic record that not only was the start of electro music, but also, inspired techno and house and all that stuff too, as well as hip-hop, because most of the hip-hop records that came out after Planet Rock for a couple of years were electro. So, number 7 is the follow-up to Planet Rock. This was not as groundbreaking as Planet Rock, but I think this one was a tiny bit better. The follow-up came out in '83. Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force, Looking for the Perfect Beat, also on Tommy Boy Records. Caught this at Hit and Run Records in Oslo. Back then, I wonder if it's got a date inside it too. Yeah, it says March 13th. Oh man, you probably can't see it. There we go. March 13th, 1984. So sometimes it took a minute to get records out in Norway, man. Sometimes we would get them right away. Other times we would have to wait for quite some time. Or they just got a few copies in, sold them out right away, and they couldn't get any more because these records were so popular in the US and in New York and stuff that they had to either repress them or get more from the label before we could get them. So sometimes we had to wait for a long time, man. We might hear these joints on the radio, and we wanted it, and we wanted it, and we wanted it, and finally we got it. So, of course, we appreciated them even more than when we got them. I mean, today I'm not going to criticize too much. The internet is great for a lot of things, man. But when it comes to music, it's like you can get everything right away now, and that kills anticipation. And when we had that anticipation, and we just waited impatiently to get a record, and we finally got it. It was awesome, man, and we play it again and again and again and again and again at home and in the clubs and everywhere, Anyway, back to the chart, because that's what we're doing here, kinda, Looking for the Perfect Beat at number 7 by Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force. Tommy Boy was one of the biggest labels back in the early 80s. Sugar Hill was the other one, the other biggest one. So this on Sugar Hill Records, and it's number 6 on my favorite hip-hop 12-inch singles of all time. This sound of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, featuring Melly Mel and Duke Booty. And, of course, the giant classic, The Message. Broken glass everywhere, people, you know how it goes. But imagine what it was like hearing records like this when it was brand new. It was on some other shit, man, I'm telling you. They were inspired by, the beat on this is kind of a rework of More Bounce to the Ounce by Sap. So, as DJs and people into club music and everything, we were, of course, familiar with that record as it's a huge funk classic, and one of us played a lot back then. Roger Troutman and Sap, More Bounce to the Ounce, So that wasn't that unusual to us, but what was unusual is that this had a strong message to it lyrically, because hip-hop records before The Message, they were like 99% about brag and boast and having fun and partying, but this one brought a serious element to hip-hop, as most y'all know. And Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, they didn't even want to do it at first. Like Grandmaster Flash been saying in interviews, like it was this dark record, and he didn't see how that was going to work and everything. And another rumor has it that Sylvia Robinson forced them to do it. I don't know if it's true, man, but I'm glad they did, because it's a huge classic, of course. The Message at number 6 on my hip-hop favorite 12-inch singles. of the 1980s. This is the White Shadow Norway, and top 5. At number 5, this one has the coolest, greatest, best cover artwork in the history of hip-hop, in my opinion. This even outdoes the Mantronic's Needle to the Groove cover. It's like a cartoonish thing here, and it's Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force, and issue number 1, like a cartoon, is working, it's working. Tommy Boy Records, that was like their slogan, it's working. And you got Bambaataa, you got MC Globe, Pow Wow, yeah, Native American style over here, and Mr. Biggs. And we're of course talking about the Renegades of Funk. This is where I took the album title for my first album from, man, Renegades. Renegades of Funk. Zulu Nation, peace out key to all the Zulus, the true old school Zulu Nation members out there. Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force and the Renegades of Funk. It's the Renegades of Funk. Man, this got artwork, man. Yeah, awesome. DJ Jesse Jagan and the props back here too. Arthur Baker, of course, produced this at Unique Recording Studios in New York. I've been there and I've recorded there too. When I did the cuts for the Jamalski album that came out in 1993, we recorded that at Unique. So, legendary New York City studio, and a great legendary record, Renegades of Funk, Afro Bambaataa, and the Soul Sonic Force, and that is my favorite Bam and Soul Sonic Force record, hands down. Top 4, bring it back to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, and the greatest 12-inch by them, my favorite 12-inch by them, as a crew, called It's Nasty, the Genius of Love. Maybe, probably not many puts this above the message, but to me this was just so funky and everything, man. They of course sampled Tom Tom Club on this one like a lot of others, but they did it better and heavier and harder and funkier and everything, man. I love this. The first time I heard this was on Top 20 Disco Imports with Tony Prince on Radio Lux. That was like the Groove Records that I talked about in an earlier video. Groove Records was like the #1 dance music and hip-hop DJ shop vinyl store in London. And Tony Prince would run the Top 20 Disco Imports hit charts from that store. They would provide him with the lists, and he would run that show on Radio Lux back in the days, and I would listen to that religiously. Even though it was on late at night and I was still a young buck, I would listen with a flashlight under the covers not to wake my mother, and just the headset on super low volume in the dark, with a pen and paper and everything, just trying to write down the titles so I could save them for later. And it was a lot of messy, funny writing there, because after all, it was dark. But what doesn't one do for music, man? And this is one of my fondest, greatest memories from that, when Tony Prince at first played It's Nasty, the Genius of Love by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, and still one of my favorites from the 80s at number 4. Number 3, a stretched version. Herbie Hancock, of course, famous jazz musician Herbie Hancock, and the classic Rocket featuring Grand Mix at EST on the scratching. Let me turn and see what's up here. Yeah, Rocket right there. This is the exact same copy. Let me see if I got a date on this when I copped it. No, I don't. But this is the exact same copy I used to rock back in the days when I played in the clubs and stuff. A lot of my records are, man, the same copies, and they still sound as great. Most of them aren't ruined. I mean, vinyl is a solid medium, man, much better than CDs or even digital, in my humble opinion. Last forever. Herbie Hancock, well, not forever, but for a long time anyway. Herbie Hancock, Rocket, number 3. This was a unique record. It had jazz in it, it had African music in it, had world music in it, it had electro in it, but in a different way, and it had DST just riding this track. I mean, the scratching was pushing this track, and then it breaks down like a little after the middle of it, and lets the Gramix DST do a scratch solo and everything. And he went on tour with Herbie Hancock and a lot of people got to see scratching for the first time and got to hear scratching for the first time because of Grand Mix with EST and Herbie Hancock on the great classic Rocket at number 3 on the White Shadow Norway's favorite hip-hop 12-inch singles of the 1980s. Top 2 now is gonna get ill. And this is the sticker from another classic record store in Norway back in the days called Fotokopi. Next to Hot News, they were the greatest, I would say the number 2 DJ import shop for dance music and hip hop and house music and all that back in the 80s. So special import, as it said, and we're going to go back to Sugar Hill Records in New Jersey, of course, and I got a kind of a busted up copy of this. Well, it's not busted up, but it's a lot of writing on it and stickers and stuff. I've been using this in DJ sets and everything a lot back in the day. So, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, The Adventures of Grandmaster Flash on the Wheels of Steel, is number 2 on the White Shadow Norway's top 20 hip-hop favorite 12-inch singles of the 1980s. When I heard this, after I heard this, also on Radio Luxembourg, Tony Prince was kind enough to play this one to all those hungry DJs back then. And when I heard this is the first record that had scratching on it. There is no record before this, no official release anyway, that had scratching on it. So this came out in 1981, and when I heard that, it was straight to my own belt drive turntable trying to scratch. That, after a little while, fucked up the turntable. But, that's how I got into scratching, and I'm still doing it. I've been doing it ever since, and I still love it. Sugar Hill Records, just a great mix of tracks like Good Times, and another one, Bites the Dust by Queen, of course, Good Times by Chick, and some Sugar Hill Records songs, like from Spoonie G and the Furious 5 and everything. When I first tried to play this in the club back in the clubs back in 1981, the kids were not dancing, man. They were like, "Yo, what's that shit, man? It skips. The needle skips and everything, They were like, "We can't dance to that. It skips." So it was a very hard record to get away with playing out in the clubs at first, man. I mean, out in Norway, and I was playing for kids. We had heard some rap records before, but we didn't know about hip hop as early as '81. That came a little later, like for most people, like 82 at the earliest, So this was a hard record to take for most people back then. But you know me, it was like, man, I loved it, and I got into scratching because of it. So that only leaves one record, and that's my number 1. What do you think that is? I'm not gonna torture anybody. I'm gonna get straight to it. We're gonna stay on Sugar Hill Records, and this is the old Sugar Hill Records label before they got this logo, which is the classic one. So what we're gonna do right here is go way back, and I know this was the 1980s. This is the 1980s favorite hip hop 12s, but I've included the 70s as well because there weren't that many great hip hop records that were released in the 70s, and 1979 was the year that the first rap records came out. What's recognized to be the first rap record was King Tim III by Fatback Band, but that's more of a funk record with rapping on it, with rhyming on it. So it's like when you say you can go back to the 20s or something with Pigmeat Markham and old jazz records that has rhyming in them. They're still not hip hop records. So this was the first hip hop record that sounded more like a live jam, because it was long. It was hella long. It was 15 minutes long, as a matter of fact. I don't need to hide anything here because y'all know what it is. The Sugar Hill Gang, put it in the light here, and the original pressing from 1979 of Rapper's Delight. This was the first time I heard rhyming, the first time I heard hip-hop music, and yeah, it's kind of a disco rap record, but it's really true to what hip-hop was about, man. They just kept the Good Times break going over for 15 minutes, and rhymed on top of it, a lot more people don't know is that the breakdown in the beginning here with the congas and the cowbells and the dum dum dum. They took that from Love Deluxe, Here Comes That Sound Again, which was a huge disco record back in 1979. And there's a lot of rumors surrounding this. Some say it came out in 1978 before Good Times. That's not true. Others say that there were white labels of this with scratching on it, where they were actually scratching up Good Times by Chick. Like Nile Rodgers even claimed to have heard that in the club, but that's not true. It must have been the DJ who scratched Good Times over Rapper's Delight. So Good Times was definitely first, then came Rapper's Delight just a few months later. Sylvia Robinson, who started Sugar Hill Records, she was at some hip-hop jams in the Bronx and whatnot, and she heard what the kids were doing, and she got the idea of that she wanted to make a record, a rap record, like recreate that vibe at the live hip-hop jams in the Bronx and put it out on vinyl. At first she approached some of the legendary old school crews, but they didn't want to do it. They weren't interested because they all figured out, who's going to want to listen to rap or hip-hop on a record? That's like party music. Who's going to want to listen to it on a record? And boy, we all know they were wrong, and we all know that they got in on the fun after Rapper's Delight blew up to be a worldwide huge hit. Even out in Europe, man, this was #1 in several countries, or top 10 in several countries. In Norway, this peaked at #2 on the pop charts back in 1980. So most people, man, everywhere know about Rapper's Delight and Sugar Hill Gang, and it introduced me to hip-hop, it introduced me to rap music. The first time I heard this was on a DJ tape from one of my mentors back then, DJ Dave Dale. What's up, what's up, what's up? And big shout out to DJ Dave Dale. That was the first time we got to hear the 15-minute 12-inch version too, because he was the only one around here in this small town with a population of about 5,000 people who had it. So this was like a legendary record back then that were talked about in school and at parties and everything. And lucky people who had a tape of this, because nobody had it on wax around here back then until later. I actually copped this as the original red label pressing, the one that came before the one with the regular Sugar Hill label and everything. So this is the first pressing, and I actually copped that this year, man. I figured I just gotta have the original Rapper's Delight on 12-inch, and you know, since it was the first rap record. So this is what we did. We brought it back, man. In the end of this video, we finished it off with how hip-hop on vinyl started. Sugar Hill Records, 1979. Late 79, almost 1980s, and still a huge classic and just as dope today. Sugar Hill Gang, Rapper's Delight, at #1 on the White Shadow Norway's favorite hip-hop 12-inch singles of the 1980s. That's it. I'm out of here. Catch you on another video later. Sub and like if you like. Peace.